made. Because living below your means grants you choices. It bestows power. It empowers you to decline opportunities that don't serve you. It enables you to wait for the right moment. It allows you to invest when others are constrained. And consistently over the span of years and decades, it cultivates genuine wealth, the kind that lasts. So today, I want to delve into this very topic, the extraordinary power of living below your means. It's a simple concept, yet it encompasses everything that matters. Well, let me begin with a fundamental question. What does living below your means actually entail? It means your expenditures are consistently less than your income. That's the essence of it. If you earn $50,000 annually, you might spend $40,000, or $35,000, or even $30,000. Regardless of your earnings, the principle remains. You spend less. Sounds incredibly simple, doesn't it? And it truly is. But here's the catch. Most people fail to do it. The majority spend exactly what they make, or worse, they spend more. They accumulate debt. They mortgage their future earnings. They find themselves trapped in a cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, and then they wonder why they're perpetually stressed about money. You see, I absorbed this crucial lesson very early on, straight from my father. During the Great Depression, my dad, a stockbroker, witnessed firsthand the devastating impact of financial hardship. He saw people lose everything, families torn apart by crippling debt and lifestyles that far exceeded their resources. And he imparted a profound truth to me. He said, "Warren, the amount you earn is secondary. What truly matters is how much you times keep asterisk." That wisdom resonated with me throughout my entire life, because he was absolutely right. You could earn $1 million a year, but if you spend $1 million a year, you are left with nothing. You're simply running on a financial treadmill, perpetually striving just to maintain a certain lifestyle. But if you make $50,000 and only spend $30,000, you have $20,000 remaining. And that $20,000, that is power. That is freedom. That is the bedrock upon which you build lasting wealth. Well, let me elaborate on my house again, because people really tend to fixate on this. They often assume it's some sort of calculated stunt or a public relations gimmick, but it's not. It's simply how I choose to live. I acquired that house in 1958. It has 5 bedrooms, nothing extravagant, just a comfortable, well-maintained home in a pleasant neighborhood in Omaha. And I have continued to live there ever since, for 67 years now. People often point out, "Warren, you could literally buy any house in the world. You could own multiple palatial mansions." And they are correct. I could. But why would I? My current home is perfectly comfortable. It provides everything I need. I know my neighbors. My office is conveniently close. What tangible benefit would a larger house offer me? More rooms I'd never use, significantly higher maintenance costs, additional staff to manage. That hardly sounds like freedom to me. That sounds more like work, like unnecessary complication. Every dollar you allocate to an inflated lifestyle, that's a dollar that is prevented from compounding. Had I opted for $1 million house instead of a $30,000 one, that additional $970,000 would not have been available for investment. It couldn't have grown, it couldn't have compounded. And over 67 years, at an average return of 10% annually, that initial $970,000 transforms into, well, hundreds of millions of dollars. So, each instance I chose not to upgrade my lifestyle, I was, in essence, making a deliberate choice to be wealthier in the future. That is the fundamental trade-off. Immediate lifestyle gratification versus future wealth. You know, I invariably frame this discussion in terms of freedom. The less you are compelled to spend, the less you are required to earn. And the less you are required to earn, the greater your freedom. If your chosen lifestyle demands $100,000 a year to sustain your large house, your luxury cars, your expensive vacations, then you absolutely need a job that pays $100,000 or investments that reliably generate that amount. And that severely restricts your options. It imposes immense pressure on you. It means you cannot afford to take calculated risks. You cannot afford to decline opportunities you dislike. You become trapped by your own lifestyle choices. But if you only require $30,000 a year, if you have consciously maintained a modest lifestyle, then you possess genuine options, real flexibility. You could accept a lower-paying job that you truly love. You could launch your own business. You could opt for an early retirement. You could invest more aggressively because you don't have an immediate need for that capital. That is true freedom. That's what money times should times buy, not merely possessions. Freedom, well, let me explain the magic of compound interest, because this is where the commitment to living below your means truly yields exceptional dividends. You see, every dollar you save, every dollar you deliberately choose not to spend on lifestyle enhancements, that dollar becomes available for investment. And once it's invested, it begins to grow, to compound. Let's imagine you manage to save $10,000 annually and invest it consistently at a 10% rate of return. After just 1 year, you'll have $11,000. After 10 years, that sum will have grown to approximately $175,000. And after 30 years, you're looking at nearly $2 million. That's $2 million from simply saving $10,000 each year. That's the sheer power of compounding. But here's the critical point. You can only achieve this if you are diligently living below your means. If you're spending every single dollar you earn, you have nothing left to invest, nothing to compound. And that implies that 30 years from now, you could still find yourself financially struggling, still living paycheck to paycheck, still plagued by constant money worries. You see, there's a pervasive trap many people fall into. I refer to it as the lifestyle treadmill. It operates like this. You land a job, you start earning some money, and then you promptly upgrade your lifestyle to match your new income. You move into a nicer apartment. You buy a new car. You dine out more frequently. You purchase more fashionable clothes. And initially, it feels good. It feels like tangible success. Then you receive a raise, and without much thought, you escalate your lifestyle again. A larger apartment, an even fancier car, more expensive restaurants. This cycle continues. Your income rises, and your lifestyle inevitably keeps pace with it, until one day you realize you're earning $100,000 a year, yet you have absolutely nothing saved because your ever-expanding lifestyle has consumed it all. The way to effectively avoid this trap is by consciously times not times increasing your lifestyle expenditures when your income goes up. Continue living as you did when you were earning less, and then actively bank the difference. Invest that difference. Allow it the time and opportunity to compound. That's the proven method for building genuine wealth, not primarily by earning more, but by consistently living on less. Well, allow me to share a personal example. When I established Buffett Partnership in 1956, I was already earning quite well, certainly better than most people my age, but I made a deliberate choice not to alter my lifestyle. I continued to live in my modest house, kept driving my old car, and every dollar I earned, every dollar beyond what was essential for my living expenses, I reinvested directly back into the partnership, back into stocks. And that capital compounded year after year, decade after decade. By the time I reached 40, I was worth millions. This wasn't because I commanded some exorbitant salary, but because I meticulously lived below my means and allowed the power of compounding to work its magic. That's the secret. That's the whole game. You know, people often believe that rich individuals spend profusely, and certainly some do. The ones you see gracing magazines and on television with their yachts, private jets, and all the accoutrements of extreme luxury. But you know what? Most of those individuals aren't truly rich. Not in the fundamental sense, because they're spending it all as fast as it comes in. They times appear times rich, but they don't actually possess enduring wealth. The people who are genuinely rich, those who hold real, substantial wealth, you typically wouldn't be able to discern it just by looking at them. They drive ordinary cars. They reside in normal houses. They dress unremarkably because they grasp a fundamental truth. They understand that times spending times money does not make you rich. Asterisk. Keeping times money makes you rich. Asterisk. Investing times money makes you rich. Well, let me discuss what I times do times spend money on, because I'm certainly no miser. I'm not sitting in the dark, subsisting on ramen noodles just to save a few bucks. I spend money on things I truly value, things that genuinely enhance my life. I spend money on good food, not necessarily fancy gourmet meals, but good, satisfying food. I enjoy McDonald's. I like Dairy Queen. I invest in books, in learning, in experiences shared with friends and family. But I steadfastly refuse to spend money on status symbols, on items that are purely for ostentatious display. Expensive watches, flashy cars, designer clothes, because those things, ultimately, they don't make me happier. Not really. They would simply become additional things to maintain, things to fret over, things to ensure and protect and deal with, and that sounds utterly exhausting, not liberating. You see, there's a psychological concept I often consider hedonic adaptation. It essentially means that you inevitably adjust to whatever your current lifestyle becomes, regardless of its grandeur. If you move into a mansion, after a few months, it simply becomes your house. If you start driving a Ferrari, after a short while, it's just your car. The initial thrill and excitement inevitably wear off, and you revert to your baseline level of happiness. So, why incur the expense? Why embrace the escalating costs and complications for something that won't provide lasting happiness? It's far more prudent to retain the money, invest it, let it compound, and consciously maintain a lifestyle that is comfortable, yet not extravagant. That's the sweet spot. That's where true freedom resides. Well, let me talk about debt, because this represents the direct antithesis of living below your means. Debt implies you are living times above times your means. You are spending money you have not yet earned. And debt is profoundly dangerous, truly dangerous. You see, when you borrow money, you are, in effect, borrowing against your future earnings. You're making a promise, saying, I'll repay this later when I'm earning more money. But what if your income doesn't increase? What if you unexpectedly lose your job? What if unforeseen circumstances arise? Now you're trapped. You're saddled with debt payments you cannot afford, and your options rapidly evaporate. You can no longer take risks, can't pursue promising opportunities, can't say no to undesirable jobs because you desperately need the income to service your debt. That's not freedom. That's financial slavery. I've meticulously avoided debt my entire life, personal debt anyway. I've never carried a credit card balance, never borrowed money for a car, never had a mortgage after the initial few years because I intuitively understood that debt is the sworn enemy of living below your means. If you are in debt, you are, by definition, not living below your means. You are living above them. And that is a clear recipe for chronic stress and persistent financial trouble. Now, there are certain types of debt that can make rational sense. Student loans, perhaps, if you're making a wise investment in education that will significantly increase your earning power. A reasonable mortgage is also justifiable if you're acquiring a modest house that you can genuinely afford. But consumer debt, credit cards, car loans for an opulent vehicle you can't truly afford. That's just poor financial decision making. That's lifestyle inflation financed by future earnings, and it will inevitably trap you, preventing you from ever building substantial wealth. Well, let me discuss another crucial distinction, the difference between needs and wants. One of the fundamental keys to successfully living below your means is deeply understanding this difference. Needs are those things you genuinely require to survive and function. Food, adequate shelter, basic clothing, essential health care. Wants are everything else. The nicer car, the larger house, the designer apparel, the elaborate vacations. Now, wants aren't inherently bad. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with desiring pleasant things, but you must be rigorously honest with yourself. You must recognize when you're purchasing a want, not a true need. Because needs are non-negotiable, but wants can be deferred or entirely eliminated. And every want you choose not to fulfill, that's money you can save and invest. You know, I constantly observe people who conflate wants with needs. They'll declare, I need a new car. But what they actually mean is they times want times a new car. Their current vehicle functions perfectly well. It transports them reliably where they need to go, but they desire something more appealing, newer, more impressive. And look, I understand that. I grasp the underlying desire. But if you constantly succumb to every desire, every want, you will never build wealth. You will consistently find yourself financially constrained. The core principle here is delayed gratification. It's possessing the ability to tell yourself, I want this, but I don't need it right now, so I'm going to wait. And that waiting, that patience, that is precisely what builds wealth over time. Well, let me share a profound concept from Charlie Munger. Charlie was my indispensable partner for 60 years, a truly brilliant man. He passed away recently, and I miss him every single day. Charlie frequently used to say, the best armor of old age is a well-spent youth. What he meant was this: the choices you make during your younger years profoundly shape what your life will look like when you are old. If you spend indiscriminately when you're young, if you live solely for today and neglect to save, then when you're old, you will likely be broke. You'll be forced to continue working. You won't have genuine options. You won't possess true freedom. But if you wisely live below your means when you're young, if you consistently save and invest, then when you're old, you will be rich. You'll enjoy financial security. You'll have freedom. You'll possess invaluable peace of mind. That's the fundamental trade-off. Immediate gratification versus future security. And most people regrettably choose the immediate because later feels so distant, but later arrives remarkably fast. Truly fast. Trust me on this. You see, I'm 94 now, and I can tell you, the last 50 years flashed by in an instant. It feels like just yesterday I was 45, just embarking on the journey with Berkshire Hathaway, and now I'm 94. And I am profoundly grateful. Grateful that I chose to live below my means. Grateful that I diligently saved and invested, because now I never have to worry about money, ever. I can pursue what I wish, give away the vast majority of my fortune, help countless people, support causes I deeply believe in. That's the ultimate freedom. That's what a lifetime of living below my means for 75 years ultimately bought me. Well, let me now address something practical. How to actually implement this, how to genuinely live below your means. First, you absolutely must know what you're spending. Track it every single dollar, because if you don't know precisely where your money is going, you cannot possibly control it. So, for a month or two, meticulously record everything you spend. Every cup of coffee, every meal, every purchase. And at the end, critically examine that data. Truly look at it. You'll probably be astonished. Most people are. They simply don't realize how much they're expending on seemingly small things that accumulate rapidly. $5 here, $10 there. It adds up frighteningly fast. Second, create a clear budget. Pinpoint your absolute needs, the essentials like rent, food, transportation, insurance. Total those up. That forms your baseline, your non-negotiable needs, everything else that constitutes your wants. And wants can, and often should, be reduced. Decide proactively how much you intend to save. 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever percentage you can realistically commit to. Then, pay yourself first. That designated money goes directly into savings and investments times before times you allocate anything to wants. And then, with whatever remains, you can spend on your wants, but never exceed that amount. Never more. Third, actively avoid temptations. Unsubscribe from relentless marketing emails. Resist the urge to visit the mall just for casual browsing. Steer clear of television shows that glorify extravagant luxury lifestyles, because the more you expose yourself to constant spending temptations, the more challenging it becomes, the harder it is to resist. Make it easier on yourself. Systematically remove the temptations from your environment. And fourth, discover free or inexpensive ways to genuinely enjoy life. You don't need to spend a fortune to be happy, to live a good life. Some of my most cherished and happiest times have cost me nothing at all, playing bridge with cherished friends, immersing myself in a captivating book, engaging in meaningful conversation over a simple meal. Those experiences, they require very little money, but they are precisely what make life good. Not the exorbitant possessions, but the simple, profound connections. You know, I want to address a common sentiment. People sometimes remark, "Warren, it's easy for you to advocate living below your means. You're a billionaire. You can afford to live modestly." But that perspective is entirely backwards. I am not a billionaire times because times I can afford to live modestly. I am a billionaire times because times I did live modestly. I lived below my means when I had absolutely nothing. When I was delivering newspapers, when I was in college, when I was just embarking on my career, and that ingrained habit, that unwavering discipline times is what generated the wealth. The wealth did not create the habit created the wealth. You see, living below your means isn't about deprivation. It's not about being miserable or denying yourself everything you enjoy. It's about being intentional, about making careful, conscious choices, about prioritizing the right things. It's about fundamentally understanding that true wealth isn't what you spend, it's what you keep. And true freedom, it emanates from needing less, not from constantly acquiring more. Well, let me tell you about a friend of mine, a doctor, who earns approximately $400,000 a year, and yet he's perpetually broke, constantly stressed about money, always worried about covering his bills. How is that even conceivable? Earning $400,000 annually and being broke. Because he spends $400,000 a year, or often even more. He owns a $1 million house with an enormous mortgage, 2 luxury cars with hefty payments, private schooling for his children, a country club membership, all these superficial indicators that times look times impressive, that make him times appear times successful. But he isn't successful. Not truly. He's trapped. He cannot retire. He cannot take a sabbatical. He cannot switch to a lower-paying job he might enjoy more, because he absolutely needs that $400,000 just to maintain his current lifestyle. That's not success. That's a prison. A comfortable prison, perhaps, but a prison nonetheless. You see, I would much rather earn $50,000 and spend $30,000 than earn $400,000 and spend $400,000. Because in the first scenario, I possess freedom, options, and my savings are steadily growing, compounding. In the second case, I have nothing but relentless stress and crushing obligation. That is the transformative power of living below your means. It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep, how much you manage to save, how much you consistently invest. Well, let me discuss one more vital aspect: legacy. You see, when you consciously choose to live below your means, when you diligently save and invest, you're not merely building wealth for yourself. You're simultaneously building it for your children, your grandchildren, and for the causes you deeply care about. I am in the process of giving away almost all of my money to charity to help those who need it far more than I do, and I am able to do that precisely because I lived below my means. If I had spent it all, if I had indulged in mansions and yachts and private jets, there would be absolutely nothing left to give away. But I didn't. I kept my lifestyle modest, and the money compounded relentlessly. And now, I have the capacity to help millions of people. I can fund critical medical research, support essential education initiatives, and contribute to poverty relief. That is profoundly meaningful. That is a lasting legacy, and it only came to fruition because I committed to living below my means. You know, when I reflect on my life, when I consider what I am most proud of, It isn't the sheer accumulation of money. It isn't simply being rich. It's the profound freedom. The fact that I've been able to do exactly what I desired for 75 years. I wake up every morning and I engage in work I truly love. I collaborate with people I genuinely like. I reside in a place I deeply enjoy. I am never compelled to do anything I don't want to do. That is freedom. And that extraordinary freedom, it sprang directly from living below my means, from not trapping myself with an extravagantly expensive lifestyle, from purposefully keeping my needs low. Well, let me begin to wrap this up. Living below your means, it's straightforward, but it is incredibly powerful. It is the very foundation of wealth, the bedrock of freedom, and anyone, absolutely anyone, can achieve it. You don't need to possess exceptional intelligence. You don't need to be extraordinarily lucky. You don't need to earn an enormous salary. You simply need to spend less than you make and invest the difference. That's it. That's the entire philosophy. But most people will choose not to do it because it demands discipline. It requires saying no to the shiny new car, to the sprawling bigger house, to the lavish, expensive vacation. It necessitates delayed gratification, patience, and the crucial ability to think long term. And that's hard, truly hard. But if you can master it, if you can consistently live below your means for years, for decades, you will build wealth. Real wealth, not just abundant money, but genuine freedom, expansive options, and unshakable security. And that's what life is truly about. That's what money should ultimately buy. You see, I'm 94 years old. I've lived through global wars and economic recessions, through soaring bull markets and devastating crashes. I've witnessed everything the financial world can throw at you. And the one constant, the single most impactful factor that has made the biggest difference, is living below my means. That habit, that deceptively simple habit, it's worth more than any sophisticated investment strategy, more than any precise stock pick or perfectly timed market entry, because it works. It always works. If you consistently spend less than you make and you intelligently invest the difference, you will get rich. It might take time. It might take decades, but it will inevitably happen. And more importantly than simply getting rich, you will be free. Free from constant worry, free from pervasive stress, free from the exhausting trap of needing to earn more and more just to maintain an unsustainable lifestyle. So here is my advice, stated as clearly as I possibly can. Live below your means, starting today. Keep your lifestyle modest. Don't instinctively upgrade every time you receive a raise. Avoid debt, especially consumer debt. It will inevitably trap you. Track your spending meticulously. Know precisely where every dollar goes. Distinguish sharply between needs and wants. And be ruthless about cutting those wants. Save 20, 30, even 50% of your income, whatever amount you can realistically manage, and invest it. Allow it to compound for years, for decades. Don't try to impress people with your expenditures. Nobody genuinely cares anyway. And always remember, true freedom originates from needing less, not from perpetually having more. That's the secret. That's everything. Well, I suppose that encapsulates all I have to convey. The profound power of living below your means. It's not a complicated formula. It's not glamorous or sensational. It's certainly not going to make flashy headlines. But it works. It really, truly works. And if you embrace it, if you cultivate it into an enduring habit, a fundamental way of life, you will inevitably look back one day, years from now, decades from now, and you will find yourself wealthy. You will be free, and you will be profoundly glad you made that choice. I live by this principle daily. I'm grateful to my father, teachers, and life's experiences for this early lesson. My earnest hope is you'll learn it. It will profoundly change your life as it did mine. Live below your means. It's that simple, yet profoundly powerful.